Hello, AOS fans!
In this video, we discuss what the new Amazon Middle-earth series means for tabletop gaming.
Ooh.
Hello, iOS fans. Yes, we're talking about Middle-earth and what it might mean for games. This new Amazon TV series that they kind of did a tiny press release. Information about this series is pretty thin on the ground. But they did a tiny press release a couple of days ago about when the thing was going to be set, and they teased a villain, and it's going to be set in the Second Age. And the villain is almost certainly going to be Sauron, because he was a villain in the Second Age, but not the dark, horrible version that is from the Lord of the Rings. And I got
things a bit Sauron-y.
Sorry.
He looks a bit Sauron-y, the silhouette-y thing.
Yeah, I think it's got. Well, there's only really two big bad guys in the Lord of the Rings. There's Morgoth, Melkor, who was the one from the Silmarillion, but in the First Age, and he's not really in, he's not really in after that. And Sauron was his kind of lieutenant, depending where you're from, and he. I think it's going to be Sauron.
Maybe the Goblin King. You never know.
Sorry.
Maybe the Goblin King. You never.
Well,
you
never know. You never know. Well, interestingly, perhaps already got me off topic, Pete. I think by moving it to the Second Age, that they can actually have a few more different villains, shadowy villains who don't turn up in the Third Age stuff. Because Tolkien is very black and white, and modern TV isn't at all black and white usually, is it? So I think they can they can have some shady characters, which they don't really have in Tolkien's writing.
Tolkien is very much a fan of Jigsaw. This man, he's a bad man, so I'm going to make him do horrible things, and you know he's bad. And this person, they're a good person, they're only going to do good things, so you know that they're a good person, and there's none of that moral dilemma going
Exactly. I think there's going to be some ambiguity in the characters going forward for this series. The Second Age, exciting things happen there. This is going to take place when Numenor is still up and around. The island hasn't sunk yet. So you've got that to go on, where Sauron deceives the kings there and makes them believe they can sail to the Undying Lands, and that ends up with the destruction. So you've got duplicitous. Sorry?
You've just given it all away.
You've got duplicitous Sauron there. You've got duplicitous Sauron because he tricks the elves, Celebrimbor, I think his name is, into making the rings and then linking them to the One Ring. So all that happens in the Second Age. So you've got a lot of backstory without getting too involved in the sort of Third Age story that Tolkien wrote about. We've always seen the films and what have you. I'm cautiously optimistic about the TV series. You know, it might be good. There's no reason to suggest it couldn't be good, but we have also all seen The Hobbit, so there's we have got reasons to be scared.
There is that. They have promised that it's going to be a minimum of 5 series, but I guess with
just
when they're
going to be about Gandalf opening a door. The first 5 series.
Yeah, I think that 5. I mean, the age they've set it in, they've got plenty of time to play with. So even if they do take another 5 series to get him to finally step inside and shut the door again, they've still got loads of time to play with there.
I'll be back in a minute.
Oh God!
I'll be back in season 6.
Yeah. So they've got loads of space and time to play with here. The two main things you need, really, space and time to add more stuff.
Do whatever you like if you've got a lot of those.
If you've got enough of that, you could do anything really. Yeah. So they've got plenty of time. I think it's a good move. It will get them away a bit from the original Lord of the Rings series that we're all so familiar with, and depending on which ones you're talking about, fond of. Maybe not so much the Hobbits, depending on your opinion there. So. Yeah, I'm quite excited.
Yes, I'm excited too, Pete. They said they were going to bring in some familiar characters. I expect we might see Elrond, Galadriel. I think we might see some new Numenorian kings, but there's loads of those to choose from in the backstory. But you might later see Elendil, Isildur, Gandalf. I'm guessing might turn up, although I don't know how they get Ian McKellen to reprise his role. I don't know how they deal with the age. Elves are supposed to be ageless, but it is thousands of years before, so who knows? A bit of CGI maybe. Who knows? None of us are getting any younger, are we? But I'm quite excited.
It'll be like another version of The Irishman, but set in Lord of the Ring times.
I love the idea that they can blend some familiar stuff, but also have totally new stuff as well. I quite like that. So it can sort of pay homage to the fans without actually kind of doing hitting us over the head with it all the time.
I feel like if they go too far away from the basics, then it'll just become another random fantasy trope that a lot of people won't be familiar with, because not everybody's familiar with Tolkien's work, and it'll just become a random fantasy. There's an elf and a dwarf and a human and whatever else, so that they'll want to keep putting some stuff in where people go, oh, I remember that character from when my husband dragged me to watch that god-awful film 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So they'll get a little bit of that in there. So I think it's a good mix that they'll get.
Yeah, but enough rambling about that, because I was also then got thinking about, well, what does it mean for gaming? Because Lord of the Rings is like a brilliant setting, obviously, and a brilliant setting for games. But there are not really loads and loads of games. There are a few. But obviously, Games Workshop, close to our hearts and minds, they have their Middle-earth strategy battle game, which I mean, obviously, I don't know any of the information about who's got rights and things. I'm sure Games Workshop have been, since the TV series was announced last year or whatever it was, or 2 years ago possibly now, they must have been queuing up, hoping to get rights for this, because I haven't played the strategy battle game. It looks lovely. I've always shied away from it a little bit, because I've always felt, well, surely all the battles are going to have to be artificially skewed, because in the story, there's absolutely no way the forces of dark wouldn't just smash the forces of good into tiny pieces. So I've always felt like the battle thing would be a little bit contrived, even though I love the miniatures and I love the aesthetic. But I've also felt like it's only got so far it can go. And when they're bringing out models like Barnum and Butterbur as a kind of, as I say, playable character, not quite what they are, is it? But for your army, you've got to feel like they're clutching at the, scraping the bottom of that barrel that was floating down.
That barrel is getting well and truly scraped to that.
And so this could actually inject a massive sort of injection inject a massive injection. That's brilliant English, isn't it? But this could inject a new lease of life into the game, because they have whole new units of elves, humans. They've got the Numenoreans, new settings, great new stuff, hopefully over a long period of new things coming out, which is kind of like what games companies want, isn't it? So they must be desperate to get hold of it. And actually, I'd be quite excited if the series is good. I think it could really kick off the game again, because I gather from Ed in particular, one of our patrons, that the rule set is pretty good, pretty tight. I would actually sort of, you know what I'm like, Pete, I'd love to play different things. Never do, but I'd love the idea of it. I wouldn't mind getting involved if they did get an extension. I don't know what you think. Have you ever played it?
I played the original version that GW did, like when it first came out, when the Lord of the Rings films first surfaced, and it was funny that you mentioned about them skewing the games artificially, because the heroes had like fate points, whereas your average rank and file didn't. And I remember a friend of mine told me a story. He worked in a Games Workshop store, and one of the kids came in, and they were trying to sell it to the parents and stuff, and they were explaining these fate points, and they said, why Sam got a fate point or a might point they had as well, or something like that. And obviously there's Sam gets, in the third film he starts beating up a couple of orcs at some point with a frying pan, and then after that they had a bit of a chortle about that one, and then later on one of the kids said, why has Boromir not got any fate points? Oh, this is awkward.
Because he's played by Sean Bean.
Well, I watched a film a few weeks ago with Sean Bean. He didn't die in it. I was quite disappointed.
He doesn't die in the Yorkshire Tea adverts either.
No, I know.
Yeah,
so I haven't played a lot of it though, but I do think that this new version of the game that they've got out for the Lord of the Rings, well, I say new, it's been around a while now, but I do think from what you say, what Ed said, and a few bits I've read online, it is meant to be much more tight and a better gaming system to play, and it's not masses and masses and hundreds of models. So that's another good point. Yeah,
so they'll be hoping they get something, and I guess we are too, hoping they do pick up some licensing stuff there. Another company that might get a license is Fantasy Flight Games. They've done a few Lord of the Rings things in the past. They've currently got Journeys in Middle-earth, which is an app-driven game, which is kind of like an adventure game where you travel around Middle-earth. And interestingly, it almost informed my idea of what this game films were going to be like, because they're set. The game is set just before the Lord of the Rings, and you're kind of the shadow is rising and things are a bit grim. And I was thinking, well, that's going to be when this is set. There's going to be like bad things happening, and it almost overrode anything official that had come. That was just in my mind. That's on how it'd be, and obviously I'm completely wrong. But I can see that it would fit really nicely if they've got some characters in the films in the TV series, and there's storylines. I reckon some of the storylines, obviously Lord of the Rings is famous for its huge battles, but I reckon quite a lot of the storylines are going to be a bit smaller scale, kind of small parties and adventurers kind of thing, a bit more personal, which would fit the Journeys in Middle-earth thing really well, because it's a sort of 2 to 5 character type game. So I could see it working nicely. Obviously, you've got some new sculpts they could have. They'd have a load of new locations because it's all app driven. It'd be reasonably easy to add in the new locations. So Fantasy Flight definitely could run with that. And again, anything for games companies that gives them new stories they must love. So you've got that option there. They're going to have 5 seasons of stories to play with, sort of 50 episodes, because I think they reckon it's going to be about 10 episodes, 50 episodes of stories to play with for Journeys of Middle-earth. It'd be a really fun addition to that narrative game. I haven't got very far.
I do wonder if when they have the visuals provided for them as well, like with the Lord of the Rings films, they had some really strong, striking visuals that obviously the filmmaking team went into great depth to create these very unique looks for all of the different races and human sort of clans and stuff like that. I wonder if that's a good thing or a bad thing for the modelers, because then they have very little they have to be creative about. They could just sort of go, okay, we want to make a bunch of Uruk-hai that look like that, or a bunch of Gondorian bowmen that look like this, so they don't have very much creative input at all. They just take the imagery they're given, so that possibly that's a good thing, or maybe not, I don't know.
Certainly in the case of Games Workshop, I think they absolutely nailed it. The modelling there, they do look like the film characters, so you haven't got to contend with people's imaginations of, that's not how Aragorn looked, because he looked like Viggo Mortensen. And so they nailed that. I'm guessing that because that is a kind of they are kind of based on the films, aren't they? Whereas the Fantasy Flight versions, I think, are more based on the books. So the characters are open to a bit more interpretation. I think they're very much not based on the film. So I guess they can't use any of the imagery from the film. So they've done their own, and it's mostly pretty good. And it doesn't have all the characters in it. It has a couple of them, but then it has a few new characters, sort of to flesh it out a little bit more. The artwork for the old living card game that they did was really, really good. I didn't play it very much, but the artwork was really, really evocative, which made me buy lots of it. But I haven't play it very much. So it's a familiar thread through my life. I've still got the boxes upstairs, and then eventually I thought, Robin, you never play this game. Just stop buying it, and I did actually stop buying it. But they stopped the living card game maybe 2-3 years ago. But they could start it again. I mean, I'm not so excited by that prospect, but they could, because it's another whole load of new characters, new stories again. And if they own the rights to it, I don't know what the license agreement is, but they could crank up the living card game. They've got the Marvel card game is very successful. Arkham Horror is very successful. So they've got that option there to bring back the Lord of the Rings card game. Might be called something else slightly different, but they could bring that back, which is exciting. And
there's a third option as well.
Whoa, on him.
On top of GW and Fantasy Flight, there's obviously Cool Minis or Not.
Cool Minis or Not, yes, Cool Minis or Not, definitely. I don't think they've done any Lord of the Rings stuff yet, but they've got some Marvel form.
And they did the Song of Ice and Fire as well.
Yeah, I mean that's really the big one, isn't it? So that's because that is a Warhammer type game, isn't it? So that's kind of like if somebody else wanted to do a battle game, and Games Workshop must be slightly worried about that. If somebody else wanted to do a battle game, then Cool Minis or Not. They love loading up their minis, and they're hugely popular. I don't know how many. I've never played the Song of Ice and Fire game. Not a world of knowing about, but it's got a following. So Simon should definitely be up there.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if Amazon have gone to the market and just sort of gone to companies that might make games and said, who's up for doing a game based off of this, or the other way around, if people have gone to Amazon and said, look, how about we make a game based off of this? I mean, GW's got to be in there as a really high contender, considering their previous works with the Lord of the Rings films and so on. Definitely.
But I think they all have, because Amazon like making money and Simon make money hand over fist. I don't know how much of it ties into New Line, because they had the rights and things. I don't know, and obviously the estate as well. Probably got to sign off on stuff. Tolkien estate. Yeah. I don't know any of that stuff, but all of them have got form, and they're all. I mean, Fantasy Flight Games is owned by Asmodee, which they're huge. They make Games Workshop look like Agents of Sigmar. They're enormous. So the money flowing around is huge. Obviously, there's billions of pounds being spent on this, so they're going to want to recoup it. So they might even license different games to all three of them potentially.
Yeah, that's true. I guess the question then is what kind of game would you like to see? And I kind of like the idea of a smaller model count skirmish type game, a bit like the Fantasy Flight one, where you've got the iPad app and stuff like that. I like the inclusion of an app that can help speed the game up and reduce the overhead and the accountancy of it all.
Yeah, I mean that's a co-op game, so it's quite a different feel. But I mean, there's definitely room for there's room for both for the main books. There's definitely room for both, so I could definitely see an adventure type game coming out, and a good solid. I'd like to see a good solid skirmish game. I don't actually want to see, because we haven't got time. I don't want to see a big, huge battle game. Impressive though that would look.
As awesome as they used to look,
an easy pickup,
as great as they
easy pickup skirmish game. Maybe a Warhammer Underworlds version, you know.
I mean, I would love to see some kind of hex-based game. I mean, since we started playing Underworlds was probably my first hex-based game that I played.
Yeah.
I don't think I played many games before that were hex-based in the way that Underworlds is, and I'm quite hooked with that style of play. I really do like that. I mean, obviously you can have bigger boards, smaller hexes, and stuff like that. But I love the faster playability that kind of thing gives you, and I'd really love to see more games follow that kind of format.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the world is their oyster. Who knows what we'll see? I don't think we will see a hex-based one, but I think we'll see some cool miniatures. Cool miniatures are going to come out of this. That's what I think the main thing we can hang on to. And of course, we did forget a fourth board game company that's bound to get involved. Yeah, Monopoly. There's bound to be a second age Monopoly, isn't there?
Yeah.
So as sure as Frodo dropped the One Ring down Mount Doom, there's going to be a Monopoly game.
Yeah. That's true. That is very true. Although I've heard sources that say that it was fake news and it never would have melted. And so he actually took the ring with him, and he's now using it. So, yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of options here. There's a lot of exciting potential, and I'm sure that we'll all, to a man or woman, have our hopes and dreams dashed when they don't do any of it.
Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be hobbits. I'm sure that people are going to be. It's going to polarise viewers, isn't it? The TV series and the games will too, probably. But do let us know in the comments below what you want to see. Would you like to see the strategy battle game expanded into the second age? I think yes for that. But do let us know. Do let us know if there are any other good systems that would lend themselves to Lord of the Rings stuff. Are there any other good Lord of the Rings games out there? I know Jason loves War of the Ring, but that's quite an old game now. I don't know if it's still in print. It might be, but it takes like 5 years to play or something. There's
that's like the Risk version of Lord of the Rings, isn't it?
It looks like it, yeah. And then I think there's a Rainer Knizia, I think that's his name. He's a big board game guy. He did a Lord of the Rings game 20 odd years ago, but I think Fantasy of Life just brought that back. It's 20th anniversary edition, which I've never played, but boy, I've heard mixed reports. Most people say it's good, but not everybody.
You know what we missed out? We completely forgot about Quest to Mount Doom. I mean, that was a cracker, right?
Less said about that, the better, I think.
Yeah, maybe you're right there.
Yeah. Right, well, thank you.
So there we go.
Yeah, thank you for listening. So do let us know what you think, what you're excited about, whether it be the TV series or the games. We'd love to hear it. If you're new to this, if you come to this from a Lord of the Rings perspective and you're new to us, then do please like and subscribe because we love chatting about anything, really, don't we, Pete?
Pretty much whatever we can.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the Ages of Sigmar.